Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph, and today we are doing a really fun vlog that was inspired by one of my patrons, Sarah, who has been in her weird girl era, and it has inspired me to pick up some more weird girl fiction. So as you can see here, I have a pretty big stack of different weird girl books that I own, and I think I'm gonna read 3 of them. Which ones? Stay tuned and find out, because I don't know either. Hello friends, I look an absolute mess because I just got done like cry laughing on reading sprints. It's a wild time. It's always a wild time. I never know what to expect. Love it. Love reading sprints. But on those reading sprints, I started Patricia Wants to Cuddle, and I know that Sarah also started it and a few other patrons. But anyway, we have officially started this book, and I ended up getting like 50% of the way through Patricia Wants to Cuddle in however long our sprints were. I think they were like close to 4 hours, which is not a lot in the long run when you think about it. Reading for 4 hours, I guess. I think I said in the beginning of this video, or I definitely said in a book haul, that I've had this on my TBR for a while, but I couldn't actually remember why this was on my TBR. I think one of the reasons it was on my TBR was Noelle from Noelle 7 Pages, for sure. I think she's the one who put it on my radar, but I couldn't remember like what the buzzwords about this were. And then when I started it, I immediately knew. Also, the little blurb on the front that says, well, I guess Bigfoot lesbian rom-com mystery horror is my new favorite genre. So much fun. But when I started it, I immediately realized this is about a reality television show. So overall, we are following like 5 different people. A couple of them are the contestants on this reality television show. It's mainly following the women on this reality television show. And this reality dating show seems like The Bachelor. I actually don't watch The Bachelor. I more so watch what's on Netflix, like Love is Blind, Married at First Sight, which I know isn't from Netflix, but it's on Netflix right now. So I normally watch stuff like that. Whatever's on Netflix, those reality dating shows I watch, but I have not watched The Bachelor or The Bachelorette or any version of it, but I kind of know how it goes. So I'm thinking that this is supposed to be modeled after The Bachelor. And at this point in the dating show, it's down to 4 women, and they kind of already know who the guy's gonna propose to, but you're seeing the POVs of these women like talking about what they're trying to get out of this reality television show and like how things are faked, etc., etc. But at their journey within this reality television show, they're all traveling to this remote island in the Pacific Northwest, and there's some eerie things that have been said about this island, like that a couple women went missing years ago and the case was never solved. They could never figure out what happened, so this place sort of lost its tourist attraction. And obviously in any reality television show, they're trying to do things as cheaply as possible, so the producers and the writer were like, yeah, let's go to this place that like people don't want to go to because it's super cheap now. So they go and they start seeing like semi-weird things. I would say being halfway into this book, we've only really seen 2 weird things, and it happens so quickly. It'll happen in a flash. Like we had this one scene where they were driving to this location and the person driving like slams on the brakes and they start freaking out and saying that they saw this really weird hairy creature. But so far it's only been like flashes of things. I think I thought we would have more eeriness going throughout this, but because the tone is much more silly and like not serious, and there's a lot of emphasis on this reality television show, because not only are we following some of the women who are the contestants, we're also following the person who kind of produces and writes and is the showrunner, I guess. That's a lot of different titles that are probably not accurate, but I can't remember exactly what her title is, but she's like very much involved in the production of the show. And so we've just really been getting to know the dynamic of all of the contestants and what their true motives are, and we're getting to know the motivations of the woman who like produces and runs the show. It's all very interesting and like silly and funny, but this is broken into 3 parts, I think, and I'm very close to getting to part 3, which is in like 20 pages for me. But I'm guessing in part 3 we'll start to see Patricia First off, because it does say in the synopsis that Patricia, a temperamental and woefully misunderstood local living alone in the dark, verdant woods, is about to enter the scene. So I think part 3 will probably get to see her more, like actually get to see her. And I'm thinking that's when things are gonna go off the rails. I kind of hope so. Otherwise, this book is fine. Like, it's funny and I enjoy the characters because it does feel silly and self-absorbed at times, which is what this author is going for. So I do enjoy those aspects. Like, the tone is correct for what this story is so far. I'm just really wanting a little bit more from the Patricia part and from the like thrillery aspect that's supposed to be in this, because it does say it's an action-packed thriller that is far from script. So yeah, I'm excited to see what the second half has in store.
You're running away. Said you're sick of the city and due for a change, but I need you to stay. Just as long as it takes me to memorize your face, I'll draw it all day. Till your eyebrows point to your jawbone in just the right way. If you made a mistake, you can come back for a replay. I've been thinking about you these days, but you'll crash your car if you change your heart, making U-turns on the
Hello friends, I'm finally back from seeing my family. I don't know where I put Patricia Wants to Cuddle, but I ended up finishing Patricia Wants to Cuddle on the plane, and I was right. After I updated you, things got wild and very campy, and I ended up loving the ending of this book. Like, the last 30-40% of this book was just really, really fun, and definitely not for everybody. I don't think it's going to be like weird enough for everyone. I think that some people who don't really love reality television may not enjoy this as much, but as a reality television lover myself and loving the cheesiness of reality television and also just like the unhinged trajectory of this book, I had a really fun time. I'm having a hard time rating these books recently, so I don't know if I'm going to rate this, but I think it's campy. I think it's fun. It doesn't go as hard as I thought it was gonna go in terms of the weirdness, but it still was really fun. And there were some really unexpected moments, and there were some really gory moments, and I ended up just liking the way that it ended. I do believe that one of the blurbs, which I think I pointed out, had talked about this being more of a thriller, and I do think that, again, that comes to play in the last like 40%, if not like 30% of this book. The thriller aspect of it all really, really takes hold. So yeah, I ended up having a lot of fun. There's like no character development in here that is significant in any way, shape, or form. They are who they are until the end. And like, the story doesn't really need the character development. And I think that like the whole aspect of reality television and seeing it from both sides, like not only the happenings behind the scene of the reality television show and with like these different reality stars, but also what's happening online, like the commentary of people getting spoilers and updates and like their opinions about the show and about these people on the reality television show and like how they feel about their personalities and who they think is going to get with who and do they think this is all real. It's very interesting to see it from all viewpoints. So I ended up having a lot of fun, and we ended up actually having an impromptu buddy read of Patricia Wants to Cuddle in the Discord and like just generally on Patreon, and a lot of people had fun with it, so that's exciting. But again, I don't know that this will be for everyone, and I especially think that if you're going in looking for the kind of weird girl that I'm used to, which is like it gets very unhinged in a kind of disgustingly creepy way, and the weirdness is kind of woven throughout the book. This is definitely not like that. This has that campy feel. I think that if you like classic horror movies from like the 80s and the 90s, this might work well for you. But again, I do think you have to enjoy reality TV to some extent for this to like hit in a really fun way. So then being at home was just, it was the thing in and of itself that I had to experience. But I was also very busy and I didn't get to update a lot. I didn't really get to read a lot. I was in a very weird mood. So I did start Luster, when I was there, but I didn't get super far at the time. But then yesterday I actually had to commute to work because I have a commute now. But on that commute, I got about like 70 pages-ish into it. And then last night I got all the way to page 140. This is fairly short. I think it's only 227 pages. So I'm probably gonna finish in the next like hour or so. But I wanted to pop in and give a little bit of an update about it. This is such an interesting book because I've seen such mixed reviews about it. And I also didn't really know anything except that we're following a 23-year-old woman and she has kind of this messy life. She's very messy and she decides that she's gonna be in a polyamorous relationship. That is all I knew about this book. In reality, that's kind of what's happening, but I don't actually know if this is polyamorous. Basically, Edie gets into a relationship with this guy named Eric who's in an open relationship, and she also forms kind of a relationship with his wife at the point that I'm at. They have some sort of relationship, not sexual at this point. So I don't know if this becomes like a polyamorous relationship, but she is participating in a way in an open marriage, mainly with the husband. And you kind of learn that Edie is a mess. When we meet Edie, she's working at a publishing company and she has been on probation a few times. She's kind of at risk of losing her job. She seems to not have like a purpose in life, and she's also seemingly dealing with a lot of trauma from her childhood and the passing of her mother. And this kind of manifests in the way that she chooses sexual partners and what she chooses to engage in sexually. This has led her to wanting to sleep with this guy named Eric, and it also turns out that she's like sexually promiscuous with many different people throughout her life, and this has also led to a lot of issues within work and within her life as a whole. And when we meet her, she's at the point where she's about to meet Eric after many conversations online and getting to know each other, and him talking about being in an open relationship, and this open relationship has rules, and so they meet for the first time, and it's like her kind of signing this contract that the wife wrote. And it's interesting. There's really no like plot or purpose, and I think that's probably purposeful with what this character is going through and what we're seeing with this character, because it's from her perspective. So it's a first person narrative, and it's really interesting how she views the world, how she views sexual relationships in general. It's interesting how she views this relationship with Eric, because it's already starting out to be very toxic, and not because an open relationship exists. He's just, I don't like him as a character. The wife, though, extremely interesting, and I'm very curious about where this is gonna go with the wife. This is another one that I don't think is for everyone. This probably should be said about every book in this vlog. Weird girl fiction, sad girl lit, weird girl horror isn't for everyone. I think it very squarely lands in you're either giving it 1 star or you're giving it 4 stars. And every time you finish a book like this, you don't know how you feel about it in the end. It's like, did I hate this or did I love this? And I really like that feeling. That's why I wanted to do a vlog like this, because I love the visceral reaction that I have from fiction such as this. But this one, I don't know. I really don't know how I'm feeling about it. I'm quite uncomfortable by the relationship that's unfolding in here, which I think you're supposed to be. And I'm quite uncomfortable with the relationships that we're learning about in Edie's past. And I'm curious to see where this is gonna go. But so far it's made me extremely uncomfortable the whole time that I've been reading it. And I don't know if I like it. I really don't. I finished Luster, and what do I think about this book? I don't really know what I think about this book. I actually took some time away from it. I finished this yesterday. Finished it yesterday afternoon when I was doing reading sprints with my patrons. It was like a stream of consciousness, and it was seriously the deepest dive into a character that you could probably get, or that I've probably read in a fiction book, but I don't read a lot of literary fiction, so this is probably an overstatement. But this was such a deep dive into our main character's life and being in her early 20s, and like how messy it is to be in your early 20s and really unstable, but then to also see this situation where she gets into a relationship with this man who's in an open marriage, and she also forms a relationship, like I said, non-sexual, with the wife. And the wife is teetering on hating her and liking her and like wanting to take care of her because she recognizes that she's like 20 something years older than her, and this girl is just floundering because she's in her early 20s and she's trying to figure out life. But in so many ways, she uses sex as a way to validate herself and seeks validation through sex. And our main character sees that, and she also recognizes that it has a lot to do with the trauma that she has encountered throughout her life between her mother and her father, and just being Black in mainly white spaces. All of the trauma has culminated into these coping mechanisms that are not healthy. And it is such an interesting exploration of this character's psyche in so many ways. And it's really hard for me to know how I feel about it because there are characters in here that I hate. And in some ways you want to hate the main character because you're like, just get it together. But at the same time, you empathize so deeply with her because being in your early 20s, unprepared for life, is just so difficult. And I think that she's a character that's easy to sympathize with, but also really dislike and want her to do better, but she just doesn't know how. She doesn't have the tools. And I also think that the conversation about being Black in predominantly white spaces was very interesting because in so many ways she called it out, but at the same time there was so much that was excused, not just by the main character but by other people who are white. I think this is a book that's really going to frustrate people because there is no resolution. So there really is no central plot. There's nothing to like cling on to plot wise, and there's nothing that would result in a resolution, so it kind of just ends. I don't know where I land, and there's so much to unpack, and I feel like this is a book that's going to sit with me for a long time. And I also think it's a book that is going to be very divisive, which again, I said this before, I feel this way about sad girl, weird girl fiction / horror, and this one is kind of the outlier because I do feel like it definitely goes into that sad girl fiction, and it is a little bit weird, but it's not the weird that I'm used to in like books, for example, Chlorine or Bloom, which lean more on the horror side. So I think that if you lean more into the sad girl fiction more than like the weird fiction / horror, this will probably work best for you. I don't fully know if I am truly a sad girl fiction type of reader because I also did not like With a Fiery Passion, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. That one, absolutely hated it. This one I didn't hate. I had visceral reactions to it, but I felt like it was such an addicting read, and at the same time there were certain things in here that really like resonated with me, and even if I didn't fully relate to them, I understood kind of where our character was coming from, even if I didn't like it. But I don't know that I would ever seek out something like this reading experience again, whereas like with weird girl stuff, I normally seek out that feeling. I like that visceral reaction that I have. So now we will be going into Youth Juice. Youth Juice is one of the books that I was highly anticipating coming out this year. I love the idea of critiquing the beauty industry. I love taking the beauty industry and putting it in like a horror setting or making it really horrific, because there's so much commentary in this space I feel that could be had. And so I'm very, very excited for this one. This one obviously is supposed to lean more horror, so I think it'll be a bigger hit for me, hopefully.
$dollars and champagne for the trouble. It's a t-shirt in the backseat of your car. Head down just like your father taught you. Stick around. Hello, good morning. I think we have a strawberry. I think we have a strawberry that I can harvest. So let's go see. You sat at the table and you listened to a scream.
Hi, so I finished Youth Juice. I did not update you, and this is purely because this book was so aggressively fine. It bordered on not being good, but it's just like also fine. Here's the thing, I don't want to compare these books, but it's really hard not to, and I tried my entire reading experience to not compare these two books. But if you have read Natural Beauty and you pick this up, you're gonna feel like this is Natural Beauty's little sister, because it's so hard not to compare the two. Like, the beginning is so familiar. The difference is that the characters are kind of going through something extremely different, but like how it all starts is so similar. We basically have a main character named Sophia, and Sophia is starting in this new company, and this company is all about youth and wellness. And the head of this company, named Tree, like, why is her name Tree? She is revered for her almost ungodly, like, youthfulness, and it seems like she doesn't get Botox. It seems like something else is going on, like maybe diet or genetics or whatever, but people are so envious of her youthfulness. And so our main character Sophia is very obsessed with Tree. She looks at her as like a role model and something to aspire to. So when she gets the opportunity to work for the company Hebe that Tree is like a co-founder of, she takes it, and immediately you kind of feel like this is cultish. It's sort of MLM coded in so many ways, but you obviously feel that cultish environment because I feel like beauty and wellness feels that way just generally and in the real world. So you get to see it from a firsthand experience of somebody like being in the industry, but also being obsessed with youth and using product and diet to achieve like eternal youth. And obviously it's commentary about our own beauty industry and the focus and emphasis we have on youth, especially with the access that we have to all types of products like anti-aging products and wellness lifestyles that are supposedly like anti-aging in some capacity, but also like the access that we now have to things like Botox and fillers, and how accessible it is these days for all ages. And so everyone who's anyone and can afford it has it. And it's just like that type of commentary on like social media and micro trends on TikTok, and women having to chase youth because their lives are a culmination of being wanted for their looks and their body until they're not, and they get old and they die. And it just reminds you that being a woman sucks, and aging as a woman sucks ass. And really the only thing that this book had going for it were a few lines that kind of address that elephant in the room of like, why are we chasing youth? And why are we so quick to uphold these standards that obviously make our lives harder and more complicated, and our mental health harder and more complicated when we view aging in our bodies and just being women? And you know, that's all well and good, and that's a great message to have because it's something that obviously I think about a lot. I think most femme presenting people think about this a lot. But the thing is that this is supposed to lean on the horror side, and there wasn't much that was eerie about it. You kind of get a big reveal at the 50% mark, and it wasn't something that you didn't see coming, I guess. And then when we kind of dive deeper into that horrific aspect of this book, this horrific reveal, it's not really that compelling. And I wonder if that's because our main character, Sophia, is so forgettable. She is such a forgettable character. She's basically like a vessel for the story where she has no personality, but she's getting you through the story. And I didn't really like any of the other characters either. And it wasn't even like I disliked characters. I had no feelings about really any of the characters in here. So yeah, I was really hoping that this would give me the same feelings that I got when I read Natural Beauty. And again, I didn't want to compare the two books, even though they are very much talking about similar things. This does not dive into the same themes in terms of racism in the beauty industry, whitewashing in the beauty industry like Natural Beauty does. I really enjoyed where Natural Beauty went in terms of that conversation, but also the conversation of chasing youth and like, why are we doing that as women? But I feel like besides one or two lines regarding the beauty industry, there wasn't much being said here. So yeah, unfortunately, I feel like this book was aggressively average. I would give it a 2.5 stars because this is not going to be something that sticks with me. It wasn't memorable. I didn't feel like it was adding that much to the conversation or this like niche subgenre that's popping up where people are exploring the beauty industry. This felt very straightforward. It felt like you could predict everything that was going to happen here, and it's nothing we haven't really seen before. And I'm not even so much talking about Natural Beauty. Like, there are things on television and TV shows that have done kind of the exact same thing as this one. So it was very predictable for me. I can see people loving this though. So I'm not saying don't go read this, especially if you're interested in it. And maybe if you haven't read a lot in this genre and specifically about the beauty industry, this probably will hit. But I think that if you have explored it quite a bit, I don't know if this is going to do anything for you that's new or exciting or fresh. So I would keep that in mind. But otherwise, I don't necessarily think it's not worth your time. It was just very average and forgettable for me, unfortunately. You should have seen how fast I just turned off my camera because my DoorDasher was here and my windows are open right now and you can see like directly in my face, and he like turned around and I was like, oh. Anyway, I just wanted to come and wrap this up because that is the end of the Weird Girl vlog. I want to say a big thank you to Sarah for inspiring this reading vlog. I do love Weird Girl horror and fiction. I just haven't been reading as much of it this year. But I don't know if anything is going to come close to Bloom and Natural Beauty for me this year, but I have hope. I'm holding out hope that it will. If you want to see a part 2 to this, let me know. You saw my stack of books. I still have quite a few to get through, so I could definitely do a part 2, potentially a part 3. And if you made it this far and have nothing else to say, feel free to leave the little hand emoji where the nails are getting painted, and I will talk to y'all next time. Bye, friends.